Can't wait to highlight that part in our recording. Where I was coming from when I was first said that they weren't struggling is recently I've been helping my mom. She's been a tutor for the last year for Chinese for students anywhere from elementary school to middle school. And I'm getting to know some of these students because I'll pop in and say hi and just get to know them. But so many of them at that age have tutors for every single subject. So, in other words, everything Cal Newport has said about time block planning, they've already been time block planning since they were 5 years old. They've conscious or unconscious been training their cognitive fitness in focusing on these concepts through mentorship or guidance or tutoring in all these academic disciplines and subjects. So what I was trying to say when I said that was like, if I've been doing push-ups since I was 5 years old, and then all of a sudden I'm a professional push-up artist at 35, and I'm trying to teach how to do push-ups, I might miss some of these things because I haven't thought about that process. But yes,
Yeah, and I think that analogy you just made is exactly what I'm saying as well. Like, it's just different language, right?
And then for the last agenda item, I don't know if Henry, you wanted to talk about your kindling doc. I mean, not your kindling, your blog post, and just from the misery of autonomy from a student's perspective.
yeah,
And
we thank you for highlighting that. I'm happy to talk about it. I also like what you put on our agenda, which is talking about what Jeff had said last time, which is how might we reframe our boredom so that we get excited about where we're studying. So the inspiration behind the blog post on the misery of autonomy from a student's perspective is actually similar to what I just touched on, right? Um, being actually earlier when Jeff was saying that not all, I don't know, focus times are created equal, or if we have a plan that is well thought out and proven to be effective and efficient, then executing that plan um, isn't will provide the most gains. However, if we have a plan that isn't well thought out and is solely based on what we've done in the past, so in learning research, I guess study skills such as highlighting, rereading, etc., um, are the ones that we double down on when times get tough. That is actually not the best plan to go about and execute because there's only so much rereading and highlighting that you can do before you realize that you're still not going to fully grasp the concepts during the exam time or during the project time. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Keep going.
mm. So when that gap of understanding or the gap of the expectation of what our professors are expecting us to um, recognize in our courses gets larger and larger, but all the other factors are the same. So if all my tools are still the same tools and I'm still just exercising those tools, or I'm still spending X amount of minutes on whatever I do with my discretionary time, it becomes really miserable because, as every student knows, as the term progresses, things get harder. Um, so that misery also kind of I think also can turn into boredom in a sense that you're not really sure what's going on. Like last meeting, I made the analogy of going to class is similar to going to a comedy show without knowing any, like living under the rock for the last 5 years because you have no awareness of pop culture, no awareness of current events. So when a comedian is dropping the punchlines, you won't get it. And that's what I'm facing in, I would say, every single one of my 4 computer science courses this semester, right? Because every lecture, there's actually a ton of punchlines and a ton of keywords and a ton of names and a ton of definitions. And if I can't prime my system, which is usually done so by reviewing the lecture before today's lecture, then that gap just really, really kind of unfolds. What are your thoughts about that, Steve?
Yeah, so I know for priming at least, like the idea everywhere I hear it from, like whether it's from Park Lee or from Jeff or just from any YouTubers like Thomas Frank, like it's golden. And I've tried to implement it, and as soon as like basically a regular quarter happens and you're behind on something, and then well you're like, okay, should I review on the things I'm behind on or should I preview the next thing? And I'm like, I'm gonna just review, and then you kind of or at least me, I just abandon priming in general because like I don't want the snowball effect, even though it's happening. I'm just trying to reduce the snowball, um, but I don't know. I haven't found a system to be consistent with that, and that kind of frustrates me because everyone says it's like a golden nugget, and I want to implement it so badly, but every time I attempt to do it, I can't. And that's something for me that I really want to figure out. Yeah, my rant. What about you, Jeff? I'm sure you integrate it.
So here's a question I have for you. What does that tell you about the act of lecture?
It's not efficient. Well, I know like, oh, I was gonna say if I think I'm more proactive than a lot of students, at least that I know. And so if I can't do it and I'm having trouble engaging, then I'm gonna say a lot of students out there, more than half, are struggling to engage. So it's not really an efficient system to.
So the first thing that I want to say is, last week we highlighted that paper by, I think, a guy named Scott Freeman. That paper actually justifies as scientifically as possible. It's, all teaching is subjective anyways, but it does a metacognitive analysis of 225 papers that basically say lecturing is to learning health what cigarettes are to physical health. Like, it's a shitty system, right? And, another problem that I haven't seen addressed in the research literature from the standpoint of like quantitative statistical analysis to justify that this is true, right? The 4-year degree was created, formally speaking, like 1930s, 1940s. But we've had like 90 years of technological development from that, and we haven't changed the structure of that degree. And so what ends up happening is it's the 5-pound bag problem. You're trying to fit 20 pounds of manure into a 5-pound bag. Well, guess what? 5 pounds can't fit 20 pounds. It just doesn't happen, right? And, a lot of teachers will think just because they can talk fast, students are understanding. But the issue that you're noticing, Henry, is like learning doesn't happen on a schedule that's defined by the teacher prior to starting. Learning happens when you actually sit down to learn. And this is, I know you said something really relevant last time, but I do think it's worth mentioning. You said, I wanted to show myself and Osama and all the students that I could do this, and I wanted to get ready to grad school. And I get that. This is a joke. It's meant to make you laugh, but would you agree that getting hit in the face and being able to like survive it makes me tough? Okay. So then I could hit myself in the face really, really hard until I'm bleeding and show other people how tough I am, right? But if I already know what that's going to feel like, and I know that I can survive that, is that a necessary exercise for showing toughness? Like, in fact, maybe I would want to like reorient, especially if I know some of the dangers associated with that, right? Like a broken nose, bloody, and the same thing is true. Like, I understand the idea, especially, I understand it because I went through it. Like, we want to prove to ourselves that we're capable, right? um,